here, and I have part 2 of my video that I posted from yesterday, which is the Tuesday's inspiration video using the inspiration that I put together actually for last week. I'm running on summertime right now, so yeah, I'm a little bit late, but I will have more videos coming up and we'll get back on track. But I decided to split this video up in case you wanted to just watch one or the other sides of this layout, or you can watch the whole video from start to finish where I kind of show you the process of both sides happening at the same time. But this is the Shark Week side. So if you haven't caught part 1 and you're confused, you can definitely hop back over and check that one out. Or a quick summary is the inspiration, which I popped up as a little picture for you to see, is something that I created kind of, like a little summary of what my July sort of encompasses. And part of that is Christmas in July and then Shark Week and Shark Fest. And so I wanted to create a layout that kind of showed both of those things. And my idea was to do something a little bit fun, a little bit of an interactive element. And so that is what I'm working on now. So in part 1 of the video, you saw me kind of cut out this circular element, get everything adhered together properly, and get everything sort of prepared. And then I worked on the Christmas side of the layout, and now I'm doing my Shark Week side. So I went ahead and printed out the posters for Shark Fest and Shark Week, and that's what my photo is going to be. So that's what's going into the circle side of this element. Now this piece of paper, I honestly can't tell you where I got it. I don't remember. It is from so long ago. I've had this in my stash for a really, really long time. And I just kind of liked the underwater scene, and that you can really tell that it's actually underwater and not just kind of a water background, because it has the snorkel mask kind of sitting down in that bottom of the ocean. And so I thought that I might be able to run with this concept and maybe create some kind of cool sharky feature. And so I have done a Shark Week layout before in a traveler's notebook, and I really liked how it turned out. And so since it's something that I do almost every year, kind of document that, oh, it's July again. We all know what that means. Shark Week, Shark Fest, and of course, Christmas in July. And so I don't want to repeat myself all the time by essentially recreating a very similar layout every single time. So I'm always looking for something unique or fun. And I had this idea to kind of create some sort of large shark element, but I didn't know at this point, if I'm being honest with you, what that was going to be. In previous layouts, I have a stencil that I actually used that is kind of like the outline of a shark, and I've done a couple of layouts with that, documenting Shark Week for one of them, and then also a couple of aquarium layouts. And so I've used that stencil a few times. I had this cut file that you see up there that says Shark Week. I actually used that in a previous layout. I'm going to use it again because I actually used the negative space in the previous layout, and so I had the actual cut file cut out itself that I wanted to use. So that is what's going to go here. And in my part 1 video, I showed you how I kind of used a little bit of watercolor and some texture paste, some lunar texture paste, which I love how it kind of dries with a plasticky look to it, or like a glossy look to it. So I thought that was really a nice texture to bring into an underwater kind of scene that you can see here. So I used that texture paste and a little bit of acrylic paint and a little bit of blues and grays and watercolors, and kind of let them just blend. I stippled it on so it was sort of dry, and I wanted to give it a modeled look with the the colors of underwater. So I went ahead and created that. And then I thought this background paper would just kind of drive home that shark thing. And that's a bit different. I haven't used background paper like this before for Shark Week, but I also just in general don't tend to use papers like this anyways. So it just kind of guaranteed that this layout will stand out from other layouts. And so I put that center circle together with my 2 pieces that I printed, and then the Shark Week, and then I kind of layered a couple pieces of paper. That's from a Kaisercraft paper pad, like a beach vibes Kaisercraft paper pad. And so I just layered it up kind of looking like sand, and then the one has cute little fish in it. So I thought that would be a fun layer too, and tore those so you kind of get that shore edge, I guess. So yeah, very, very simple, and got that put together while I was working on my concept for what I wanted to do here. And now I'm just going for it. So this is something I have learned to just do. When I have an idea, I have developed the confidence, I guess is what I'm going to say, to just give it a try. I just wanted to see what I could do. And so I'm doing it. And if this hadn't worked out or I wasn't sure, I would learn from what I'm creating here. And then I could just try it again on a different piece of paper, or, adapt my idea or run with it. But I figured I'm just going to give it a try. So my idea was some sort of cool kind of shadow going across the top of the page, because I love the cinematography in a lot of the Shark Fast and Shark Week documentaries, where you see the silhouette of the shark as it's kind of swimming above you. And it's, for me anyways, I think it's a beautiful kind of image in my head that sticks out and really stands out as something I associate with sharks, is that kind of like ominous shadow that's above you. And so I thought that piece of paper really works well, because you get the perspective that you are under the water with where the snorkels are and everything, or the snorkel, there's just one, and the goggles. And so it would work well if there was sort of like a shadowy figure that's going across the top. But I wouldn't consider myself to be the kind of artist who can just freehand stuff. I probably could have done this if I had really taken my time and pulled out a picture that I wanted to recreate, and really, kind of sketched it out and was careful with it. Or I could have just printed something on a piece of paper and cut that out, maybe enhanced it with a little bit of mixed media to give it some dimension. Or found a cut file. There are lots of alternatives. So if you aren't someone who enjoys kind of playing around with mixed media, or you aren't really sure of yourself, there are other ways you could definitely recreate this shark. I just am at a point right now in my creative journey where I'm just going to go for it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And in the end, I think it worked out pretty good. Is it like a perfect representation of a shark? No. Is it good enough that everyone can see that and go, oh, that's a shark swimming across the top of the page? I think so. And so that is good enough for me. It doesn't have to be perfect. It really is meant to be a representation that gives you that eerie, ominous feeling that you kind of see in documentaries and things. So I think I achieved that, and it was really fun to do. I essentially just used the packaging from another paper collection. And you know how some packaging, especially Simple Stories packaging, they're what do you call that? Like their branding page that lets you know what's in the kit. It's more of that plasticky coated paper. I picked that because I know when that gets wet, it wrinkles. And I thought that the way that it might wrinkle would lend itself to the textures of a shark. And the idea of the shark not being part of the background of the paper, but being something separate that's going through the water. And I also knew that the watercolor doesn't fully absorb straight away through whatever it is that coats those types of paper to give it the texture it has. And so I knew it would blend and it would cause little like ripples and bubbles and stuff. And so I was hoping that that would work the way I wanted it to, which you can see how much texture there is right there. And it did. It actually worked. It's not, for me, it's not the best drawing of a shark, obviously. That's where I would have needed to take some time and really like sketch it out nicely if I wanted it to look realistic. But it definitely worked from a texture perspective exactly the way I wanted it to. And I literally did what you saw there. I roughly sketched out the body shape that I wanted and a couple of extra fins. And then I let the watercolors do the rest of the work. I blended black and let it kind of run down, and I went back over it at the top so it's darkest at the top, and it kind of works its way down to being white underneath. And I used white acrylic paint to bring out the white on the belly because it tends to have a bit of a different texture as well. And yeah, just kind of let it do its thing. And now it's drying. So while it's drying, I am putting together the actual interactive element. So in the last video, in part 1, I explained that I put the papers together. I put the background papers together and I put the circle elements together. You haven't really seen it on the back of this layout yet, but you have seen it while I've been manipulating this circle, that I have Christmas on one side and I have Shark Week on the other side. So I wanted to work with the elements stuck together because I felt like it would have been harder to try to adhere them to each other after they were completely embellished and decorated and had a lot of dimension to them. So I stuck everything together, but I left a channel in the circle and also in the background where I would be able to easily pull this string through. And so now that I've got the string down and kind of pulled through the circle, I have to adhere everything so that they don't shift and move around, and the string is really held securely on the background and held securely within that circle, so that the only place it really moves is in the little gaps where it will spin. And this very much is inspired by the cards that you see quite often, the little spinny cards. I just love those. And I'm not much of a card maker, so I've never actually made one as a card before, but I thought it would be kind of fun to do it as a larger interactive layout. And I do have an idea. I haven't done it yet, but I do have an idea for how I think I want to get this all put into a page protector, because I definitely don't think it should just be left in the album without any protection, because it does have elements that could be pulled off or, kind of damaged. So I will work on that and I will film it. But I think I'm going to try to secure the page protector directly to the layout with my fuse tool. So we'll see. I may not have left enough space, enough of a gap in my circle to be able to cut a space there, but we'll see. It's the ideas are kind of stirring in my brain, and so at some point I will be sure to come back to this layout and figure that all out. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure everything is secured down really tight. I used embroidery floss and I tripled it because this is probably something, well, it's larger and it's heavier for starters, but it is something that once it's in the album, it's either going to be pulled in and out of a page protector, which will cause some wear and tear, or it's going to somehow be used within the page protector. And so I want to make sure that all that weight isn't pulling on the strings too much and that it isn't going to rip it or anything like that. So I extra secured it, probably more than you would if you were making this as a card, because you're probably opening the card a few times and then you put it away. Whereas with this, it may end up getting seen and played with more often. I don't know. We'll see. I just wanted to make sure it was really nice and secure. And so now that that's all done, I am going to cut out this shark body. And it is intentionally sort of only half of a shark, or maybe, 3/4 of the shark. I definitely didn't want to do a full shark figure. So you can see how I am putting it right up at that top edge to make it look more like just the top, or just the shark is kind of swimming over or above maybe a snorkeler who's down at the bottom of the page. So I didn't want it to be just a full-bodied shark kind of sitting at the top. I wanted to give that impression of like the shadow or that ominous kind of figure that swims across you. So yeah, but this is what I ended up with, and I think it definitely does the job. It's not perfect, and that's totally fine. For me, it's a representation, and it's meant to give you the feelings. So I think it works, and it does the job. It's just a really fun element, and it's something I've never really done before. I've definitely never recreated a large shark-like element to put on a layout before, so I enjoyed it. I think it was fun, and I just like doing creative stuff like that. So it works for me. And so here you can see why I did the fins separately, is so that I could give them a little bit of movement. And so I've got the one fin kind of going to the back, and then I've got this fin coming out from the top of the body, or the right side of the body. And now I've got my shark that's going across the page. So lastly, I just want to bring in a couple of elements that are on the Christmas side of the page, just to make sure that everything's kind of cohesive and that it makes sense, that the spinner is kind of demonstrating that I go back and forth between Christmas and shark all month long. And so on the other page, I used 49 and Market Christmas chipboard pieces in reds and greens, obviously, to embellish. I have two kind of little clusters of embellishments apart from the one that's in the spinner. So here I wanted to also use 49 and Market, and I have the collection that has that like beachy lighthouse theme. That was last year's summer collection that they had. And so they just happen to have a very similar red, and so I thought it would be good to bring the red over to this side too. It's a contrasting color to the greens and the blues that are kind of predominant to the layout, but also I always think of like reds and blues as very maritime colors, and the collection itself is basically reds and blues with some whites and grays and stuff. So I think it works well, and I don't have red, overpowering any of the embellishments here. They're just little pops. I have that one kind of bracket piece, and then I have a couple of starfish that are also red, but the elements themselves I used are similar. So I don't know what you want to call them, but I call them like the book brackets. I used those on the Christmas side as well. And then I have a large chipboard poinsettia. So here instead I have some large chipboard words to kind of give myself a bit of a subtitle. And I did add that fun little jellyfish and a couple of the seashells, just so that this side does have something unique. I mean, the large shark kind of floating through the top is unique, but I also wanted to have an element that was at the top of the page, because on the Christmas side, I tore a couple of strips of pattern papers, and I have that at the top of the Christmas page. So they're not the same element, but they're in the same space, and they're kind of taking up the whole top section. And then I also used the acrylic paint, the white paint, to give myself a large white circle and kind of push back some of the pattern paper on the Christmas side. And so I used that acrylic white paint to paint in some of the it was sort of like a shadowy tone on tone image of, I think, seaweed. And so I just painted that in white. So here you can see the Christmas now, and it has in July in that bottom right hand corner. And so I did the same thing on the Shark Week side. I put the in July down on that bottom. I kind of followed the edge of the circle, but in that same general area. So when I flip my little spinner, oh my goodness, my son is texting me like crazy right now. He is away at cadet camp and he must have a lot to tell me about what's going on. But there I just showed you how you can now read Shark Week in July, and you can also read Christmas, or I guess it says Merry Christmas in July. So both sides kind of work the same way. Here you can see a close-up of all the different elements that they have. And yeah, that is my whole layout. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, you can check the whole thing out with a different voiceover, giving you a few different, perspectives on how I put this together. And I appreciate that you're checking everything out. Leave any questions for me down below. Please check out the other ladies in the series too. There's Mel and Lynda and Hollie. And we have a master playlist, so you can definitely hop in and find that if you want to kind of check us out right from the beginning. But that is it from me for now. So thank you. And we'll talk to you all again soon. Until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.